All those in favour, please say aye. Against, they're carried. Brilliant, thank you. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Cheers. Okay, that was 9.4, go now to 9.5, and welcome Venture Timaru for the quarterly report. Welcome, Nigel.
Through you, Your Worship, the Council Officer report is the cover report to receive and note the Venture Timaru quarterly report, and Mr Davenport is here to speak to that and to answer any questions.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Your Worship, elected members. Thanks for the opportunity. I'll take the quarterly report as read. Just a couple of comments from me. The front end piece just around the local economy. There's a few creaks happening across the construction sector, especially those companies involved directly in the residential side of things. I think also, whilst we are the backbone, our backbone is the primary sector. The impact of some of the dairy, forestry, meat prices took a bit of a dive in that last quarter to December. Dairy's recovered a bit, but bit of a flow through there. But I suppose the beauty is that we are a significantly diverse economy in terms of our industry sectors, so we can weather that storm probably a wee bit better than others. But that said, we're heading into what is traditionally a bit of a hibernation period through winter as well. So as important as ever that we look after each other, but most importantly from an economic perspective, we continue to buy local as much as possible and support those that support us. So, in terms of the report itself, as I say, I'll take it as read. Happy to take any questions. One of the left field and more interesting things happening next month is a reality TV show being shot on the outskirts of Timaru. If you haven't had your invite yet, I'm sorry you've missed out, Stu. Yeah, something quite interesting. So,
What's it entitled? Is it? It's not A Place for Nigel, is it? By any chance? No.
Yeah, we're all making plans for Nigel, XTC. Yeah. So yeah, I'm happy to. My ears are that big and I still didn't hear that, Councillor Scott. And the other point I'd just make too, the next paper is the accepting our draft SOI. I notice in the recommendation you talk of a subgroup or all of you. We do actually have a statement of intent workshop set down for the 15th of April, which is specifically aligned to that, but I'm happy to answer anything obviously at this stage as well. So thank you.
Perfect, thank you. So any questions in regard to the quarterly report to begin with? Yeah, Councillor Parker, thank you.
Thank you, Nigel. My first question is on page 63. You've reported that there is 160 new retail jobs locally. Can you expand a little bit? Is that the impact of the showgrounds, or
effectively? I asked the question. It's very hard to dive into it, given that a lot of the employment data is actually derived out of NSIC codes through IRD, and they're very protective. But we anticipate that a good chunk of them will be in relation to that. Has to be.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, and just a follow-up question regarding the cruise season 65, 66 pay. So looking at the growing cruise ship industry that Timaru is receiving, and looking at a cruise strategy, would that sit within your destination management plans?
Yeah.
And so, how often do you update those management plans? Because the 2001 is the only one I can find online. 2021. Yeah, 2021.
Yep.
Yeah, is the only one I can find online.
So it's currently been updated, because when we did it in 2021, we actually didn't have a cruise sector at all.
Yeah.
So we're in the final stages of re-engaging with our stakeholders around the cruise sector. Primeport obviously being a prime one, excuse the pun, and others as well. So the destination management plan is being refreshed as we speak.
Thank you.
Councillor Middleton.
Just in regards to the cruises and the talk of how much they do or don't generate, on Boxing Day, all the big days, you're able to run data to show how much was spent. Could we get that retrospectively for the cruises that have come to town for those days? So when we say to people, this is what it generates, rather than go, well, we think it, we can actually say, this is what the season generated.
Last year, prior to the start of this season, when we had one season under our belt, we got Infometrics that we're aligned to provide us with it was sort of not a draft report, but they didn't have the full data to go back on and compare, whereas this year we're about to talk to them about instigating another one, which will be for a lot more specific. So I think the previous season to this one, the 14 cruise ships, it was worth about 2.8 million to us. But there'll be a lot more data associated with that. And you're quite right, the paymark stuff, we can very clearly identify international spend on those specific days.
Yeah, Councillor Jackson.
Nigel, what are we doing with the penguins and the potential of the penguins down there at Caroline Bay? Just curious, as far as how are we developing that down there?
Yeah, the VT team are in discussions with both penguin entities, and discussions are ongoing around a more cohesive approach and offering.
It just appears that Oamaru does it so much better than us and have so much better facilities that
we have
to do in that area.
Yeah, we do. We're trying. There's two parties that take claim to the penguin offering. Primeport, about a year ago, I think, set aside some funds around some cameras and those sorts of things. And the reality too is around facilities, it actually falls into that wider master plan for Caroline Bay, ensuring that we do it right, whether it's cafe in the bay, whether it's viewing platforms, those sorts of things as well. So yeah, we are knee deep in that at the moment, and we're making good progress is what I can say, but there is a challenge there, as you'll appreciate. So.
Councillor, further on penguins or something else?
No, I just actually wanted to go back to the cruise and endorse what Councillor Parker said and how that sounds like a fantastic thing for Timaru, and how we need to make sure as a council and VT are doing everything we can to make that a good experience for everyone. But my question was around the horticultural work stream, of course. So great. I was really pleased to read that you're starting with the market, which is the right place to start. Yep. What I want to know is, will part of that work stream also be looking at the regulatory environment, because the market could say cover the whole of Canterbury with dairy farms, but we all know that's never going to happen. And what role do you have in advocating to make sure we have the right regulatory settings, yep, or whatever that yep, comes out? Probably more of a advice rather than a question. My actual question is on the second one, where you went along and saw some stuff around aquaculture and maritime and land-based. What do you plan to do with that? Like you said, this is one example of additional opportunity. So what is the flow on, excuse the pun, from here?
We're fortunate to be selected alongside Southland, Venture Taranaki, Northland and South Canterbury for an AgMart, bit of a study trip really, just to look at some of the other areas in New Zealand that are like to us, especially with that food fibre focus. The government has put a line in the sand. They're wanting to double exports within the next 10 years. 80% of our exports, or near enough, are primary sector based. There are challenges across some pretty obvious ones. It's been identified by MPI that aquaculture and horticulture are our two, excuse the term, lowest hanging fruit. So we have had discussions with NIWA. It was very much it's a proof of concept site. They've got a bit of work to go yet. So the opportunities for us, given our, I suppose, our strength across the wider food and fibre sector, is to make sure that we see and understand those opportunities and whittle them down. And that aquaculture one, that on-site farming of kingfish and haupuka can be replicated anywhere in the country, provided you've got access to seawater and you've got access to heat. so that you can regulate the water. So yeah, it was something I hadn't seen before, I wasn't aware of, but when you dovetail it into some of the strengths that we've got and the capability and skills that we've got here, it has to be right up there.
Awesome, thank you. And just on the cruise side of things, with my own business hat on, it's just been phenomenal, especially at the end of the season. And the other thing to note, which is interesting, is independent travellers international have been making up to about 30% of the market. So if they weren't there, and people think, you know, a place like Timaru itself is not touristy, but if they weren't there, then the market would be really, really flat. So that's really interesting.
Could I just say, Your Worship, too, there was a table, Benji Patterson, independent economist, put it in the back of our report there, actually showed the visitor spends of areas that are recovered well and better than others post-COVID, and we're actually fourth on the list. Our domestic visitor spend was up 130% on pre-COVID levels, and our international spend was sitting around 90% against the New Zealand average of about 76%. So the cruise obviously plays its part in that, but as does the wide variety of events which are supported through the Major Events Fund, obviously, that council support via us as well.
Brilliant. So any further questions? I'll move that. Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, just regarding, you know, we invested quite heavily in Kaylee Bell last summer. Are we looking at doing something along those sort of lines this summer as like a headline act to draw people here? Can you say anything?
Yeah, there's apparently a Neil Diamond act that could not be on our list.
Thanks for the plug, Nigel.
Yeah, could not be on our list, councillor. Yeah, most definitely. A hard act to follow, to be quite honest. Like, it was absolutely awesome. And it was the fullest the Soundshell area's been in years, I think. So yeah, our intention is to continue to replicate that, to sit alongside the Caroline Bay Carnival with a headline act and help develop, I suppose, the wider offering of the carnival to ensure its relevancy, but also its future as well.
And Councillor Jackson, you'd like to second that? Perfect. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Brilliant, and stay there. So we've got the receipt of the Venture Timaru statement of intent. You did just make the point that we are having a workshop on this shortly. Is there anything else you want to add in that regard?
I just wanted to add, this is a first crack at a bit more of a easily digestible format, I suppose, which sort of highlights alignment to council's own vision and values, but importantly sets out our approach, our long-term, our shorter-term and our more immediate focus as well. So we look forward to discussing that in depth with you all and your senior leadership team come the 15th as well.
Thank you. Is there any specific...
16th, sorry.
That's all right. And I know just general conversations that were, you know, overall it's, you know, pretty good stuff, I would have thought. So any questions specifically? We're happy to just move to the workshop in a few weeks' time. You're more than welcome. Don't be shy.
I do. But,
Go for it.
well, just in
Councillor Pike.
preparation for the workshop, I'm not 100% convinced that you've covered everything we set out in our letter of expectations in this here. Like, I think it's a great start, great to see some KPIs. I just, you know, specifically, we had in there a plan to bring all key stakeholders together for a district-wide strategy. I didn't see that reflected in here. I thought we were a bit light on risk, you know, some of those governance things, risk management, governance, and yeah, that's okay. Probably which we can talk about at the workshop. But
Yep, I can have a discussion offline with your CE, Nigel.
Councillor Parker.
Just a quick question, just looking, and I hopefully got my columns in the right. Tourism grants from 2023 up to the proposed budget, it's like increased by $271,000 in 2 years. Is that right? So 197, 2023, 2023, 24, 395, and then proposing 468. I got my columns mixed. It just seems to be a big increase in the tourism budget over
So
2 years.
You're talking the visitor attraction one?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is tied to the cruise funding, isn't it, to support that? So with the cruise boats have come some extra cost, which is being split with Primeport and council via VT, so that's the funding for that.
Yeah, there's some underlying, you're talking over the last 2 to 3 years, is
So
that
just going
correct?
from your previous report for tourism grant, 197, and then 395, and then looking at this report for 24, 25.
Oh,
Just-
wait a minute.
Yeah, there's that note at the bottom.
Yep.
Do you see
which
that?
is an
Yeah.
increase. But what I'm also saying is that
Oh,
over
sorry.
24 months,
Yeah.
Sorry.
that's one big increase
Yeah,
Yeah.
in spending on tourism.
Oh, the 197 you're looking at is our year-to-date for 6 months.
Right.
The full figure that you're funding us this year is 395,000 in the current financial year. The increase up to 468 incorporates up to 60,000 to support the cruise sector. We haven't never had a budget line or never had an expense line for that. So over the current year, council agreed to reimburse us actual costs up to 40k, I think it was. The previous year, we were able to meet those costs out of reserve. So the increase that we're asking for on our base operational funding is significantly less than CPI. I think CPI is about 4.7. We had a discussion with the Mayor and CE and put it in at just under 3.5. So our operational funding increase that we're requesting is 3.5%. And then in addition to that is cruise specific, which we've written a separate paper on, 2 papers on into council. So we can talk more on that.
Thank you, Nigel.
Yeah, cool.
Brilliant. Anything further? No, all good. Can I have a mover for that? Councillor Burt, thank you. Councillor Booth, seconder. Put the motion out. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Brilliant. Thanks, Nigel.
Thanks, everyone.
And welcome now the TDHL team, Mark and Fraser. So first we have the quarterly report and then receipt of the TDHL draft statement of intent and then the draft modified. So I'll pass to you, Mark. Mr. Rogers.
Thank you, Your Worship, councillors. So the report for the period 1st of July 2023 to 31st December 2023. I'll just touch on some of the key points from our letter. Financial statements and activity updates show the positive start to the year has continued with ongoing engagement with stakeholders and net operating profit tracking above budget. Regarding financial performance, the year-to-date net operating profit is $1 million, which is favourable to year-to-date budget. While revenue is slightly higher, the positive variance is primarily due to lower expenses. Regarding the balance sheet and statement of cash flows reflect the increased equity position from the close of the 2023 year. The strong cash position from 22-23 has been allocated to investments in capital projects such as Martin Street and Linden Street acquisitions and the 3 Fraser Street site ceiling project. Regarding governance, TDHL held its AGM on 6th of December and acknowledges Council's ongoing support, so thank you. Following the AGM, a productive workshop was held on the development of TDHL's investment strategy. Further work has since been completed by the board on the investment policy statement, and we look forward to presenting this to the council at a workshop in mid-April. Regarding Primeport, an annual dividend of $757,500 was paid by Primeport to TDHL. As reported in the previous quarterly report, the 2023 financial year was challenging, and the dividend reflects this from Primeport. Since the time of this report, TDHL has also initiated a director appointment process for Primeport following the resignation of Damon Odie. And have you got anything to add? I'll take the rest of the report as read and take questions. Thank you.
Could you perhaps just give us an update on Alpine Energy and how they're tracking?
Yeah, they're tracking well. They're going into financial end of year now, so we'll be getting there. They've got a 31 March balance date. The consultation on DPP4 has been progressing, and there'll be some initial releases from the Commerce Commission in May, but it won't be finalised till the end of this year. But it's all about DPP4 and the price settings going forward for them.
Financials are in line in terms of reporting at the moment, and SADI and SAFEs are slightly behind target.
I'm just wondering when they're going to start contributing some funds.
By way of dividend,
Yeah, I guess we've got, in April, we'll talk about returns from associates, and then in August, we've got a workshop with you on, specifically on associate performance and returns, so we can provide quite a bit of detail then.
Still within their debt levels in regards to the equity allowances and et cetera, and just what level of debt are they carrying at the moment?
90 million at the moment, which is within covenants.
and within their forecasts.
But I think, you know, as we've signalled, it's a sector with some really broad challenges, and it's not just Alpine; it's every lines company, it's every community is facing the challenges. And you've probably seen, you know, Aurora down in Dunedin, Dunedin City Council are looking at changing, you know, asking questions about that. As a sector, they face the headwinds of decreases, manage their networks and operate. So.
And we are having the discussions with them at the moment in regards to the SOI process regarding dividend, and in consultation with all shareholding parties.
Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just want to ask about the Majestic Theatre. So I see that we're doing some asbestos removal, but anyone knocking down the doors to purchase that or to renovate, maybe?
So we've seen articles in the newspaper, and we're open to all offers, and we've reached out with individuals in the community. We've explained that we need to understand the value proposition and how much they would like to pay for the properties, and we've had nothing back at this stage.
Councillor Pye.
Thank you. I see under property that Fraser Street was a major capital project with significant value added to the tenant. What about the significant value to TDHL? Are we getting a return on that capital? You failed to mention that.
Yeah, but we are. It's a chargeback, so it's you know, it's a win-win for all parties.
The rent is linked to the capital improvement.
Further questions? Councillor Piddington.
I see you've put a resource consent for Linden Street. Can you explain why? Is that good access to the...
That's the resource consent to extend Linden Street. So basically, it's the land development resource consent, the subdivision resource consent.
the access off Meadows Road out, or is that just more efficient?
It enables access off Meadows Road and Linden Street. Under the outline development plan and the district plan, it envisages that Linden Street will be extended through to Aorangi Road. So this is the first stage of that extension. So we open up both sides of Linden Street and access off Meadows Road will be enabled. Yeah, that's resource consent.
Thank you for the questions. No, can I move? Yeah. Councillor Jackson, Councillor Burt, put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Move now to page 97, which is TDHL receipt of draft statement of intent. A little bit of a double up there. So, did you just want to speak to the two in general, if you like?
Yep. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for the letter of expectation from Council. That was timely because we were reviewing our statement of intent at that time, so we reviewed it in line with the letter of expectation. hence the cover letter has been written to align the letter of expectation with our statement of intent and try to explain how we have answered each of the aspects within the letter of expectation in the statement of intent, if I got those words all right. I'll take the letter as read. The only point I do wish to clarify is on page 107, which is around the table performance targets, the line dividends per share. It has 0.03, 0.04, 0.05 and 0.05. What that links to, what that actually is in terms of dividend, so 2023-24 is $1 million, 24-25 is $1.2 million dividend, 25-26 is $1.4 million dividend, and 26-27 is $1.6 million dividend. So that's the forecast out for the dividend in real dollar terms, and that calculates through to the dividends per share reported there. So that's just for clarity linked to the expectations and the letter of expectations. And I'll take questions. Thank you.
Questions? Sorry. Yeah, no, we'll take a comment. Yeah, Councillor Pye.
Sorry, and I did talk to Fraser about this yesterday, but I find the earnings per share and the dividends per share very confusing. And I understand the audited figures, but the earning, like on the face of it, it looks like a very, very poor dividend. But the earnings per share is not just cash, is it? And I do wonder if we could have a different line in there that has your, you know, what you're retaining, because then it makes the dividend look a lot, the rate of the dividend look a lot better.
Yeah, well, we can look at some options around doing that, and part of that April workshop will be around the returns that the TDHL is generating, and we'll break them down, and we'll look at the percentage of earnings passed through as a dividend, and I'll probably, extending Mark's comments there about the dividend, in the early stages of the current early stages of TDHL's reinvestment and diversity journey, there's a bit of a balance there between what we pay back as a dividend and what we reinvest and use to pay down debt. So it'd be really good to have a deeper conversation about that in April as well.
Councillor Piddington.
Just in the financial forecasts on page 108, next year you're forecasting expenses at $500,000 more than this year, but you're also expecting revenue of 600, other revenue of 600,000 more. Can you give us a feel for what both those are?
The revenue is forecast revenue from Linden Street, having that tenanted and occupied, so that's obviously a forecast. And the costs, there's a range of costs in there around compliance. There's quite a bit there, and support district plan review support, to be honest.
Can you explain that, Fraser?
We have, as part of the district plan review process, we've joined with Prime Port to lodge a submission on retaining as much as possible the development rights in and around the port and the port zone. And so we've had some good discussions and good progress with council on that, but the realities of a external party engaging with council in the district plan process is that it is very, very expensive.
Yeah, it does highlight it. It's not just the cost of council, there's a lot of costs sitting out there for those submitting on the plan. Any further questions, or can I have a mover for that? Yeah, Councillor Booth, Councillor Parker, put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. And then we've got the next one, 114, draft modified TDHL statement of intent. Anything to add?
That follows on from the review by the Audit New Zealand
Yeah.
in regards to CCO versus CCTO.
Yeah.
We are a CCTO. We have changed our statement of intent to align with the requirements. This is that.
Yeah, cool. I think you always were. I'm happy to move that if there's no other questions. Councillor Shannon, happy to second that. No further questions, comments? No, I'm pretty good. Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Brilliant. Thank you. I might, just in the interest of people in the public gallery, I might bring forward, thank you, team, appreciate that. I might just bring forward 9.12, which is bringing forward future development areas at Seadown and Kennells Road, because I know there's been some people that are waiting with interest, and so I'll ask the team to come up. So that is on page 222. Thank you. I'll pass over to you, and then I just might propose that discussion. We might just break the two FDAs in half and just discuss 13 and 14 separately, if we might, because they might have slightly different discussions. But I'll let Paul and the team open, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, this report was requested to consider the high-level cost estimates of what might be involved in taking FTA 13 and 14 forward as... Sorry?
That's right. Mr. De Jure, you'll get an opportunity to speak shortly. Thank you. Mr. Cooper, go on. Thanks.
Requested by the Environmental Services Committee, actually, and brought back here to Council today. The report has been authored by Hamish Burrell. He's Planning Manager for Consents, Compliance and Strategy. And I thought I'd also bring in Aaron Haggart, who's our new Planning Manager for the District Plan Review today as well, and he can speak to any questions around risks to the District Plan Review process. So at a high level, I suppose, in summary, it's not a no, it's a not now, but there is obviously a lot more things to discuss, and I'd open that up to the floor and ask for any questions to be put forward. Thanks.
Thank you. And Mr. De Jure, possibly Mr. Hull, will get the opportunity to speak. And I know there's other interested parties here representing the trust, etc. So just be mindful of the different people in the room. But I'll just go to questions, then we can bring some of the others in after, and there'll be the opportunity to question those as well. Councillor Whittington.
Yeah, look, I'm just concerned again, I don't know, the enabling side of this seems to always disappear and get buried. I mean, nowhere in the report to say 400 houses will return 1.2 million in rates, you know, it just seems to be unbalanced in some ways. It concerns me that our own growth management strategy seems to hamstring us because we can't do it because we agreed way back to something else with land that's unattractive and part of that. I mean, to me, some of the costs seem a bit outrageous. I guess if we were talking the industrial area, that probably doesn't need a sewer direct anywhere because it might in fact be an inland port. And I guess some of the costs too can be covered by financial contributions as well. So nowhere in it do I see the balance there saying some of these contributions can come from the developer. I'm still totally in favour of moving forward with this because Venture Timaru came and just spoke again, and on top of their report is future housing. We're hearing it from everywhere at different angles, and I think we need to enable it. We've got a willing developer that will take most of the risk. We need to start taking these opportunities.
We'll try and take some questions for this team. Thank you, Mr. Booth, Councillor Booth.
Yeah, could you just elaborate 3.3, page 222 in regards financial? What sort of quantum and what are you talking about financial implications? Can you please sort of extrapolate that out a wee bit for me? Thanks.
So, thank you, Councillor. 3.3 refers to the cost in implementing a variation to the district plan versus a private plan change. So, any time you notify a change or impact on the district plan review, that's going to come with additional costs on top of those costs that are attached to the report, which would be the technical costs to put a proposed plan change together. On top of those costs, additional funding from a council, if council was asked to carry that process through, would be the notification process, any examination of those technical reports, engaging a planner to carry through that process, carrying out the hearing and the like. So, as I'm sure you're all aware, any process in relation to planning becomes very costly and time consuming and goes beyond the initial putting together of what the supporting documents may be.
Are we not sort of going through the district plan update right now?
Yes, correct. The best way to describe the current district plan is when council decided to notify that version, a line was drawn in the sand and that was notified, and that's what everyone's engaged on and provided input to date. If council was to direct a change to that district plan, council has to go multiple steps back, propose that change, then go through the whole notification process again. There can be implications on the district plan review that's currently in process, and that it may need to stop depending on what that change needs to, the proposed change needs to make to what's already been notified, so can result in delays in that project, re-litigation or resubmissions on some of those points that are already through the process. So yes, whilst council is in a district plan review process, to make a change to it based on the position it is in now would require a bit of a reset and restart in some regards.
I guess I'm concerned that all I'm hearing is excuses and reasons and problems that we shouldn't do something, where it's quite clear that we need to do something. We need to change the settings. So I guess what I'd like to hear from the council officers is how do we do this, and how do we make it happen within the next couple of years? Because at the moment our offering is not sufficient, and it's not meeting the requirements. And I'm not sure if you read an article in the Weekend Herald around housing and land availability, actually, and the restrictiveness of the current settings and allowing development to occur, and therefore affecting the outcomes for the particular districts. And so I guess what I'd like to hear is how do we actually make this happen, and if there's a cost involved, how we sheet that back to the developer to pay for it. And so there isn't a financial impact other than the opportunity for people to build a house on a piece of land that's affordable and where they want to live.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Booth. In relation to the team, they have ethics and professional standards, and when we ask a planning question, they give planning advice. And their advice is suitable for the current climate or the current planning framework. In terms of what we could do, I think it's kind of inferred in the report, but probably not stated clearly, that there is an opportunity with this 30-year growth horizon and the MPS for urban development that's coming mid-year. There's an opportunity for provincial councils like us, being Tier 3, to lobby central government and influence them to include Tier 3 councils along with Tier 1 and 2, so that we aren't disproportionately negatively affected by that policy, so that there's more migration to the metros. So I think that's the opportunity, and that's where we can make a real difference in terms of that MPSUD. There's also been some indications from central government that they would step back their class of soils to just class 1 and 2 soils in terms of the MPS for highly productive land. So there's a lot of change happening, and there's a lot in flux in the next 6 to 12 months that would change this, change the rules, if you like, for this application and make it more favourable, particularly for FTA 13, and make it more doable. FTA 14 is always going to be a challenge if not all landowners are on board, because when that goes before a commissioner for a decision, that will be something that will be taken into consideration. And if all the landowners are not on board, then it's unlikely that that commissioner would allow that to go through on that basis. That being said, there might be other landowners in the vicinity that would be open to developing their land. So it's just the shape of the application that might need to change, not necessarily reduce it down to the 150 houses that's been sought for this particular application from Timaru Developments. So there's opportunity to make changes, there's opportunity for things to move forward, and I think the most important one for us right now would be influencing the central government to make sure Tier 3 councils are included in that 30-year growth horizon, which we've done the bulk of the work for through our FDAs. So we've already got evidence to support that. So we're already well placed. So I think that's the opportunity we have.
How do we promote this up the ladder? I'm just reading a plans document here, and it's still including a whole lot of land that's been internal inside our boundary, but people don't want to live there. It's on the side of a slope, or it's in a shady spot, or an undesirable part of town, or it's in a swamp. So, you know, that sort of stuff is a nonsense. It shouldn't even be in there. You know, it's been in there for 30 years, and it's like the excuse why we're not actually reaching out and actually looking and being a little bit more proactive. So, you know, we need some, you know, in my mind, we need something happening, and we need to be on the go. We need to be proactive, and I guess encouraging people to take risks and basically offer something, a product that fulfills the needs of a lot of people who would like to live in Timaru, or who already do live in Timaru. We have expensive stuff now, and there's some product offerings we're looking at right now, but that's going to be $350,000, $400,000 potentially for a section, you know, and on the side of a hill. So, you know, we've got to have the full gambit of product to offer people to buy and develop their, and, you know, have their lifestyles, bring up their families. At the moment, we're discouraging that. So I want to know how we make that happen.
So, thanks, Councillor Booth.
I want to ask the team some leading questions as well. So effectively, we've got a proposed district plan that has been signed off by council, has been notified, and is now going through a process with commissioners in terms of hearings and the final sign-off of that process. And that's quite a long process, 2 years approximately? Now, while we've done that, we've had a change of government, and it looks like the settings could change. Those settings are different to what our current proposed plan were developed on. And that's something we've got to navigate and work out which is the best way to navigate that. So it appears to me we're spending money on FTAs 2, 3 and 4, or 1, 3 and 4?
1, 2 and 4.
So if we pivoted, so we've got a choice. We let that plan continue through its process, and then if the settings are different, we're going to have to put an amendment to that. Is that correct, planners?
We will have to notify a variation once we
get to that point, that's right in time.
And the money we've spent on the FDAs, is that required if the settings changed or not?
Yes, it will still be required because what we're spending the money on is setting out the layout of that area of land and where roading should go and where infrastructure should go in place. So a lot of that money will be needed. What the difference is with FDA 13, with 14 in particular, is that we have some other planning arguments to overcome, which FDA 1 and 2 does not.
Okay, so if I go back to the plan, the district plan, the proposed district plan, is it quicker and cheaper to pull it back, adjust and resubmit, or to let it go through its process and then do the amendment? What is quicker and cheaper?
Our advice is it's quicker and cheaper to allow the district plan to run through the hearings process and then think about variations towards the end of it in 12 to 18 months' time. Yeah. That's our advice.
And do we start working up 13 and 14 to have that ready to go straight after that variation is either accepted or not?
I think the expert reports that would be required to reach the bar, whatever the bar is in 12 months, could be undertaken at any time by the developer if they wish to put an expert at work to do that in the particular reports that need to be made. So there might be 4 or 5 different considerations where you might need expert advice and a report put together for the decision makers.
And the other point is we're not the final decision makers, are we?
We have very little control of outcome. We can just try our best. But in terms of meeting that evidential bar, that's where a lot of the risk is associated with cost, with plan changes, because it's ultimately not council's decision.
Yeah, Councillor Pye.
While I'm supportive of being an enabling council, I'm worried that as a council, we don't have any evidence that other than hearsay, other than VT saying there's demand, other than real estate, where is the hard evidence that there is a massive demand for this type of subdivision housing? And if there is a massive demand, why haven't some of the other ones already been developed and sold in Timaru? I'm not saying this isn't a good idea, I'm just saying where is the evidence?
I mean, that might be able to be a question for Mr De Jeux and Mr Hull shortly. Look, just speaking briefly to the MPS and update the council. So last week at the local government conference, got the opportunity to ask Minister Bishop around, and I updated some of you, but not all of you, around the MPS for urban development, and that would they be interested in considering provincial councils, which I believe as far as Tier 2, actually, we just sit out of it as far as numbers. I think it's 50,000 people, is that correct? From what I could see from the...
I'd have to check, we're Tier 3.
Yeah, we're Tier 3, but I think, if we were favourable on the right day, if we had another 300 people, we might lean towards Tier 2, so it depends how far we lean, or maybe we need to encourage some increase in birth rate or something. But we're not we're not far off. We're within a stone's throw. But he was very receptive of the question around allowing that 30-year growth to extend to provincial councils or Tier 3, and did say that he'd be keen to meet on that, and that's something that we're taking up, and have rung the neighbouring councils. So this has all just happened over the weekend. Run the neighbouring councils who are supportive to, and I've also been talking with James Meagher's office and how we best approach that. And so that would have, ideally mean probably myself and Nigel go to Wellington to try and get in front of them so we can influence that urban development NPS, which would be helpful across all of these discussions as far as where cost lies and what have you, which I don't know, do we know the timing on when they're expecting a new NPS? Does anyone have an indication?
I will say, and I could be corrected by the Network News probably at the moment that's going on, but no, we don't, other than possibly towards the end of the year. I know some of the other national policy statements, it is likely to be at least 6 months.
Yes, yeah. I think the key thing is that we get in front of them so we can influence, and they were very receptive because they're pro-growth in that regard. So I think there's a real opportunity that does sit in there, which could help solve a lot of our problems. What I might do now is just invite, was there any other further questions for our team at the moment? And we'll get you back up to close. But I might ask if you guys take some seats, and I'll invite Mr. Dejoux and is Mr. Hull going to jump up as well to come and speak to us? Just push the button and away you go.
Thank you, Worship, and councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I guess our kind of key position is that the proposed district plan, as it was put out, that line in the sand that went out for public consultation, just isn't fit for purpose in terms of where we are with the current setting. So what you've got is it really is just far too conservative in its approach to growth, and trying to force that infill development before development spreads out further. So really, the way I liken it is almost to the article Councillor Booth has referred to that was in Stuff, and it's, if you use that supermarket analogy, it's like forcing everyone to buy all the food off the shelves before you restock them. And obviously not everyone is wanting that land that is available, that is required for that infill to be completed before you move out. And I think this issue is just going to keep coming up time and time again. And what we see is you just constantly hit barriers in terms of the land that is available and the land that is available to do anything at scale. So really, unless it's just going to keep coming up unless the plan is withdrawn and we start again and just kind of reset those settings really. And I think where we're at we're seeing with the council things are changing quickly, changing considerably and quickly, and we've seen announcements in relation to housing. We've seen those announcements in relation to SNAs, some of that direction that's come out. So what you've got is the previous, the proposed district plan has been drafted using those Labor policy settings, or a lot of that was implemented by the previous government. The new government has come in and things are changing rapidly, and this proposed district plan is caught up in that process. And I guess just what Fraser Munro highlighted in terms of the cost to TDHL to participate in that process, that is what everyone is trying to work through. So, the district plan sets out, what the council wants in terms of how it wants the district to grow and develop. But really, we're all kind of fighting against that. And it's, in terms of growth, it's based on the work that was put into the growth management strategy, which is almost sort of like the tail wagging the dog in terms of the people that have undertaken that work that's kind of influenced the way the plan has been drafted. So, unless there's a major reset in terms of that approach going forward, I think we're just sort of, stuck really. We can't move forward. And so, what we've got in terms of Rooney Holdings and TDHL is, we've got land that is being purchased and is available. Sorry, TDL.
I wonder if Fraser Munro works for me.
But, we've got that, it's the, we can develop it straight away if the planning settings enable us to do that. And so the way it's set out in terms of the proposed district plan and those future development areas, it's still set so private developers, would pay for those private plan changes. So, there's still a long way before that land can be developed with that process, plus the costs that are incurred in doing that.
So with Kettles Road, there's one owner, not multiple owners. So that's to clarify, Mr. Cooper. So I don't know, we ask ourselves when we want to do it. So with the FDA's number 1, 2, 3 and 4, we actually own a lot of that land. So you can go and get that ready, but we might decide not to do that land for forever. So what a waste of money you spend, you're just spending money that we're not going to develop it. We might just land bank it. At the moment, we need the lower cost housing. This report here is a heap of shit. It is absolute garbage. It says it's going to cost 13 to 15 million to get a sewer line and water to the sites. Well, they're 500 metres down the road. So unless they're made of gold, well, I wouldn't have a clue how it's going to cost 13 or 15 million. So, it's going to come to a stage where I come every so often to do subdivisions and we keep getting knocked back. Well, all of a sudden, we're not going to do any more subdivisions. And we own most of the land. So what are you going to do then? Come knocking on the door and say, oh, we need some more sites. We've just finished 2 subdivisions now, in Mahoney's Hill and Hobb Street Tavern site, and they've all sold out before we even finished them. So that tells me there's demand. Well, even with the QV people, they're saying that the sites are going up, so the value is going up. There's obviously not the demand. There's obviously demand, so we need to bring that back. If there's more available, the prices will come down. So I don't know. It's just becoming this here. It's written by Andrew Ross, who's meant to be an independent. Well, he used to work here at the council. So I don't know how he's an independent. A lot of this is just absolute shit. I'm struggling to see how you can actually even take this seriously.
Well, I think we might go to questions. Is there some questions? Councillor Pye, yeah.
And this is, you kind of, when you said you own some of the land now and you're not developing it.
Well, no, I'd say we will at some stage, but.
So I'm supportive of doing this, but I'm just questioning who pays for it and at what time.
Developer pays.
Well, not at the moment, that's not what we've been asked in the paper. So my worry is council goes and spends a whole lot of money on this one and then it doesn't get developed just like all the other ones.
Well, that's right. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, but so
if you're not listening to us, then not.
How is Kennels Road any different? So that's
because it's lower cost housing and that's what we need at the moment. We don't need 350 plus sites.
But it's still a risk to council that we invest.
It's a risk to me because I'm paying for it. Developer pays.
Not if we do it as a variation.
Oh.
That's the problem with. Well, that's the problem I have, is that we've invested a whole lot of money in this proposed district plan. It's been 10 years in the making. If we could just get that finished, and we've had advice that we should concentrate on getting that done and then do this plan change.
Advice by the people that reckon that College Road's good building site?
No, they were different people. They were consultants and the lawyer around this actual.
From Timaru?
No.
Oh,
No.
okay. So they don't know the areas or.
Oh no, but my concern is which is the quickest way to get this over the line at the least cost to the ratepayer. And I'm not convinced that doing a variation in the middle of a proposed district plan process is the answer to that, because I'm not convinced, and I also think that it may get easier in 6 months' time when the government changes some rules.
Yeah, that's the cheapest way. Mr Traynor.
I think we need to think about this more about the proposed district plan rather than FTAs. Yes, the FTAs are affected. So at the moment, there is a potential of a change in settings. It hasn't changed yet. What I think we need to do is go away and come back and say, if those changes happen, what is the most cost-effective way of getting our district planned to match the new settings? Because I, like you know, Mr Cooper's given us the answer that he believes, let this one go its distance and then amend it or vary it. There are other people who are thinking the opposite of saying pull it, vary it and then resubmit it. So that's the two options we've got. Both options are going to take time. And we're stuck in that. We are stuck in that process. And there's frustration. I can see there's frustration from our developers, there's frustration from council, and we've got ourselves into this situation. Now we're going to have to try and work some magic of how do we pull ourselves out of this. And I for one don't know the perfect answer, but we're going to have to really think outside the square to find out, is there an answer?
A technical question, Mr Hole, you referred to if we pulled the plan, obviously we'd go back to the operative plan. Does that, if we were under the operative plan, would it be any easier to do this? You'd still have to do a variation to the plan, wouldn't you? The operative plan doesn't allow you to subdivide this land, does it?
I mean, so yes, you're right. You'll be working under the provisions of the operative plan. So that would be rural land. So you would just be working under those provisions. I guess in terms of withdrawing the plan and resetting, that's more about recognising that what's being put out there is not quite right, and that it's easier to go backwards to go forward rather than carry on with that process that the council is in there, because there's obviously a lot of time and money to work through that process.
Isn't the most efficient way, though, is to recognise what's not right in it through the submission process, which is what we're doing? Like, if you go back and start again, you can pull it out there, you get more submissions. Like, I think, you know, your opinion, and I'll keep mine quiet, is it's not quite right, but we will find out what's not right with it through the submissions, which are due to start in hearings very shortly, and then we can, you know, rely on the commissioners to make those changes and get a plan that is right. Surely that's more efficient time-wise than pulling the plan, starting again, doing a whole lot of homework, trying to work out what's right, putting another one out there, and then the community telling us we still don't have it right and we've still got another 2 years on top of that. I'm trying to find the fastest way to get what you want.
Sure. Yeah, so, I mean, everything's just going to stop while that takes place. That's the issue, and then, yeah, I mean, it's just not going to move forward.
We're not going to go any faster.
If it was pulled, we could still apply for resource consent to do some of what we want to do under the operative plan, and that may be less restrictive than some of the proposed plan provisions.
And you can still apply for resource consent, though, for that site, but is that challenging because of the process?
Yeah, I mean, we could apply for resource consent under the proposed district plan, but that is challenging because of the objectives and policy direction in the proposed plan. It's quite restrictive, and it's quite directive in terms of how it sees development occurring.
Yeah.
And that's that sort of out of sequence development discussion that
people talk about. So it is really quite clear that that's the obstacle with the proposed district plan as it is.
We could ask Mr Cooper, but I think the paper around FTA 13 and 14 was trying to point out what probability of it getting approved. And my understanding is the current operative plan doesn't have any FTAs in it. So no matter what, we're going to have to go through the process for resource consent, and the risk is, someone's going to spend money, and is that money going to come out with a positive result or a negative result?
Yeah.
So do you have a view on that, Mr Cooper?
Go to Councillor Piddington, did you?
Yeah, look, I'm no expert in any of this stuff, but I'm concerned to hear a developer thinks we're putting a plan forward that's more restrictive if we're trying to enhance the district. What would you say, Nathan, that is making it more restrictive? And I know it's a tough one, but why would we be putting a plan that's making it harder to do things?
You were on the
Yeah, look, I think that was never the intent, but I have heard from another couple of independent groups that would also be would appreciate a pause. Look, I think there's a couple of things, and what we do with the district plan is actually going to be a conversation now at this point with the Minister as well, and I think that still is the opportunity to try and fast-track a conversation on a couple of these points. Councillor Pai.
I was just going to say, aren't the chapters that you refer to, Mr Hole, about strategic direction and things like that, aren't they getting heard in the next couple of months? And is there an opportunity to hear them? I know it wasn't the plan, but to hear them and change that part of it, that then might make your resource consent application far easier? Or am I deluded?
So yeah, I mean, there are submissions in on the proposed district plan on all those matters, including seeking rezoning of the FDAs, or some of the FDAs, and essentially that is the issue, that the way the plan has been structured, it wants that infill before it spreads into the FDAs, and then that is directed to occur in a sequence. And really what we're saying is that the FDA should actually all be brought into the plan, and it should be more open, and then there's much more choice about how that development occurs, and it will occur more rapidly. You've obviously got the infrastructure that has to sit with that, but like Ryan has said, we would, the cost for that sits with developers, because we provide all the infrastructure within the subdivisions, and then the infrastructure that feeds the development, that the cost of that is able to be recovered through financial contributions. And that is the case in the current operative plan, and that is what's put in the proposed district plan as well.
There's a cost to council in doing that variation if we choose to do that variation right now. Like, not in the development side of it, but if we choose to do a variation to the plan now, that is a cost to council, whereas if we get the district plan out there and you do a private plan change, that is your cost. And that's what concerns me, is that we're spending ratepayer money on that when we've already invested heavily in this district plan.
I'd rather spend money on, ratepayers would rather spend money on people coming to town than the Theatre Royal. Put it that way.
The plan shouldn't be set up so that private companies or individuals have to then pay for private plan changes to go forward. The plan should be set up to enable all that development in the appropriate places outright, from the outset. It's sort of set up with a two-step process, so it's almost incurring an additional cost, because what a developer has to do is obviously pay for the development when they do it. They also have to carry all the money of doing that the development. In this case, have made the decision to acquire the land, but can't actually do anything with that land until the zoning.
Well, the council need to have some skin in the game, because we just can't provide 200 houses and invest all that to you, and you get all the rates, and you haven't, there's got to be some sort of back scratching somewhere along the line.
I'm supportive of the development. I'm just trying to be clear in my mind, what is the fastest way to get there at the least cost?
Look, and I think that's the challenge, and I know, and I do wonder if the plan in its current state with some, because the key thing is that urban, that policy statement, I think, because that could be a game changer overnight. And maybe that's an opportunity for council and business to work together.
But it doesn't help when this sort of stuff gets written and you guys read it, and it's just sending the wrong messages. It's just not right.
So I'll go back to my point. I think that might be the opportunity, and there's no easy answer in today's conversation around how. I think generally there's a will for all parties to get to a point where development can occur, and it's, in a perfect world, council would like to step out of the way and let the market, work its magic and provide for whatever the market needs at the time. Basic supply and demand. But at the moment, because we are where we are with the district plan, it's a bit of a hindrance. But I'm still of the view that the key change is actually there's a willing government. And last week when I had a conversation with the minister around Tier 3 councils, they were pretty open to the conversation. And I think that inclusion in that policy statement would be a game changer for this, and effectively those FDAs should become zoned land, if I'm correct, because that gives you, that's basically what we've got there is, I think, is 25 years of growth. Is that correct? So it would almost meet that 30-year threshold if we can get that. I don't know if we're going to get an answer today. I just want to, the cost associated with, I just want to bring the two apart for a little bit. The cost associated with 13 versus 14, I think 14 feels like it's harder, but 13 could be easier. Am I correct, or do we have the same, probably looking to our planning team, do we have the same costs, etc., associated with that? Aaron and Hamish, are you able to jump up and just talk me through that? Because it's that opportunity that sits within industrial versus the residential, obviously.
Thank you, Your Worship. The reality is the cost and process to bring the industrial FDI in line would be the same. In saying that the current high-level policy framework may be more favourable to achieving success in relation to the industrial land versus the residential one, which is the council's touched upon is currently not favourable based on the national direction around the MPSUD and the MPS highly productive land and the likes.
I could just add that in terms of residential development, I mean, there will have to be obviously an extension of the water pipe framework. Stormwater is a bit of an unknown and how that's going to be managed on the site. It does sit in a floodplain and roading, there needs to be a number of possible changes to the intersection and possibly some sort of pump station for sewage. So there are some infrastructure costs, and again, that's why this was viewed as being possibly further down the track. When
that doesn't sound like 13 million to me.
Thank you. Because the question, MPS for urban development is not going to influence, obviously, the industrial land, is it? So the industrial land. Nathan,
some people here may have, but
got planners for Africa, and Mr. De Jure, you're not one of them. So let's let's talk to a planner in regard to now I've lost my train of thought. Yes, FDA 13. Because that's not, with the current settings, it's going to be the same moving forward. Is it still going to be sitting within an FDA if we don't make a change? Is that correct? Because there's nothing that influences industrial, commercial land in that regard that's sitting with government that we don't have now.
Yes, if I understand the question, it needs to be rezoned.
Okay, so for that to be changed, it needs rezoning or us to make or variation, etc. Yeah, and would that have less challenges on the district plan as far as a variation? It's just the cost associated with it.
There are some submissions on the proposed plan. I think Waka Kotahi are in opposition to one of the FDAs, and I think it was 14.
Yeah, more likely to be 14, I would have thought.
So that there is possibly an indication in terms of where the challenges might lie.
Yeah.
Through you,
Yeah.
Your Worship.
Thanks,
In terms of FDA 13, the industrial land, so that was, in the growth management strategy, one of the reasons for that being put out 10 years and beyond was because it was in fragmented ownership. So, in the space of the plan being notified and that being identified as an FDA, and then some speculation occurring on that land, so, like now 30 plus hectares of that has been acquired by Rooney Holdings, and that, just like that, we could be expanding into that tomorrow if the zone provided for. So it just shows how the market changes, and how these planning processes don't keep up with that.
Yeah, Councillor Pye.
So if that was rezoned and you could start developing it tomorrow, is the demand there? Like, have you got people knocking on your door for that industrial land?
Yes, there is. I mean, obviously all wouldn't be developed all at once, but we would spread into it as there was demand for that. And, we've put information to the council that says that.
Yes, just considering we're limiting stock until all the undesirable lots are used up. If that's how we're operating our system, we've got something seriously wrong. And if that's actually drawn up into our new district plan, that's crazy. So, I mean, I look at Ashburton, I look at Rolleston. You look at Ashburton, there's 1,000 sections on the market. So when the demand comes along, it's there. The property developers are doing it, they're meeting the demand, and Ashburton is growing exponentially compared to Timaru. And that's simply because those sections are there, and they're at a price that, like sausages in the supermarket, that suits them. So some steak on the Callans Hill, if you want it, but you need some sausages, and we've got none.
Callans Hill's going to be low-cost housing, a mixture of high cost and low cost. I can't see anyone in Paders Road or Callans Hill having low-cost housing. And it's in here.
So some movement forward. I think what I'd suggest at the moment is FDA 14. I'm proposing that as a resolution, we take some of this offline, that we work with the developer to progress FDA 13 with a possible PPP. And so we can work together to understand where the costs lie and perhaps who might bear those costs. So a conversation offline. As far as, is anyone comfortable with that? So that's the industrial land. Just wanting to move that side of it forward. So it's a conversation with the developer on how we could achieve that effectively. Yep, so they've got some nods. Yeah, and then in regard to FTA 14, which is residential land, and I know that we haven't heard from other interested parties in this room, and I think we recognise that we're dealing with, you know, what what is it? It's not TDHL, Timaru Holdings Limited own on that space, so trying to move that forward, that is actually probably best picked up with trying to accelerate the question to the Minister on getting that in through the MPS. So it's not a no, it's a work in progress. So I think the only resolution that can come out of that, but we can take that offline and talk with parties again on how we best achieve that. I think everyone generally is wanting the same thing, it's how we get to the outcome. So as far as the resolution, are you comfortable with that for the FTA 13? Yep. And then I think that's probably all we're going to get to today. So yes, Councillor Parker.
Do we need to put a length of time around this?
Yeah, we could do, but I think there's incentives here. I think we just pick it up tomorrow. Yeah. Yes.
I'm supportive to get this moving forward.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I don't want to see, you know, businesses that have got the opportunity to develop being hindered. So, yeah, it needs to be straight away as far as my thinking. Yeah, Councillor Booth.
I guess it's just not satisfactory if I think this is going to be a 4 or 5 year sort of thing. It needs to happen a lot quicker than that, somehow.
No, I think that's why we're having this discussion, because we're trying to find a quicker solution, but we're in a statutory process which is hindering, and I think Council's always had that aspiration for the growth, and, you know, Mr Hull has made a good point that we've been called across two different governments with different wants, and our plan's caught in the middle. So how do we get to what we wanted to originally as far as the aspirational growth for the district? And I think, you know, personally, I think we need to put our best foot forward in front of the Minister to achieve that. So the resolution is to work with the owner of land within the FTA 13 to progress further. What would be the resolution? What did I say before, Rachel? The PPP. Yeah, so I can tidy that up. So, yeah, so the resolution will be to take offline and work with a possible PPP with the developer to accelerate FTA 13. So is everyone comfortable with that resolution? Yeah, so 14, I think to progress that, it's got to be the conversation with Minister Bishop. And we'll bring in all our residential land across the district, and will probably actually help with the costs associated with further FTA development. Well, it will, because it will be where it sits, whether it sits with council or whether it sits with developer.
I guess the only problem I have with that, Nigel, is that's legislation that's, you know, that could be 2 years away, and we're not guaranteed that at the level we sit it's even included. So...
Well, no, I mean, that's the challenge. That's the big opportunity if we can get it included within the MPS. If we can't, then we're just going to be doing what we're doing today, going around in circles.
Because these sites won't be affordable sites in 2 years' time. They'll be way up, they'll be back up to Pages Road values. You know, we're not waiting 2 or 3 years to... You know, we can provide affordable sites now, but in 2 or 3 years' time, we're not.
No, I understand.
The cost of everything's going, you know, development. So, hell, good luck.
So, as far as the resolution, and I think if there's some other things that we need to take offline, discuss relative to the district plan, yeah. Alrighty, I'm happy to move that. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Parker. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. You're against?
Against, because we're just going nowhere again. You know, we bought this ages ago and we just keep sitting in the water doing nothing. So that's why I'm voting against it. I would like to see us be courageous and move forward, because what we don't have in Timaru is a large-scale development that has the chance to deliver low-cost housing. And I take Ryan's point, if they sit on it, have interest for 4 years till we get round to it, the opportunity is lost. So that's why I'm voting against it.
Yeah, so we'll record that, but I'd be interested in what's your solution? If you've got a solution that sits there, we'd love to hear it.
Well, you know, let's have the discussion with the developer. I mean, they think it's achievable. We have an opinion it isn't, but there must be some middle ground without waiting for a government to hopefully do something. That's all I'm saying. I'm not an expert.
Is it? Yeah, that's the resolution for 13. So far, Councillor Piddington, you're recording a vote against FDA 13. That's what you've recorded.
I think we're talking across purposes.
So you've actually recorded a vote against the development of industrial land. Yeah, so we haven't voted on that. Yeah, so I'll take for the record, I'll take your vote off that, because I don't think that's what you've reflected, and that's fair. Sorry, thank you. Is everyone okay with that? The record of events, yeah, thank you. Yeah, and so we haven't. No, I take your point. We haven't got to that. Yeah, yeah. So and I mean, there again, we've kicked this around, and I'm interested in solution, and there's no easy solution. I'm keen to take that up with the minister and try and get us in the NPS. I think that's the biggest opportunity. I'd love to be able to say, hey, wave a mayor's magic wand. I don't have that, but I get the challenge there. But if we were just to stop, I mean, the only opportunity here is to stop the district plan, and then what does that do? Does it move us ahead any quicker? I'm not convinced that we've got the answer yet. Yeah, so anyway, we'll pick this up again in the morning, because we do have other things to get through. So thank you, Mr. Dejoux, Mr. Hull, our council team, appreciate that. And we will move now to 9.1, which is back to the agenda, long-term plan, draft consultation. So I'll welcome staff. Does anyone need a 5-minute pit stop? Yeah, we'll just adjourn for 5 minutes, thanks.